Imagine you just hooked up with the girl of your dreams. She's beautiful, feminine, and sensitive. She's supportive of your goals and has tons of love for her family. So you've been seeing each other for a while now, and it's clear she's girlfriend material, so you decide to take it to the next level. You've both been holding out for the right time, and you've shared a couple of intimate moments together, but you decide you're finally gonna have sex. You're in the mood and that sexual tension is building between you, but right as you get down to business, something's not working. And you try your best to get it up, but the moment has passed. The mood is officially dead. And the worst part is, she thinks it's because of her. She feels unattractive, and she begins to question whether you really like her. And you promise her you do, of course, but you don't really have any way to reassure her. And your first intimate moment together, something that you should both be remembering fondly for years to come, has been ruined. So this exact scenario has happened to me, and I'm sorry to say it's probably gonna happen to some of you. And many people would say that it was my previous porn habits that led to that. You know, there's a lot of evidence out there that would suggest overexposure to porn will make it a lot more difficult for someone to become aroused. And whilst I think that is partially the explanation for it, that just doesn't do the problem justice. What we have to acknowledge is that in 2023, sexualized content is everywhere. It is all over social media, on the internet, on TV, and it is so prevalent that even a guy with David Goggins' levels of discipline could go on the Instagram Explore page and see literal softcore porn within 5 seconds of scrolling. If you're online in any capacity, it is simply a guarantee that you're gonna see sexualized content. And it's not like you've purposely gone searching for it, it's not like you expected it, but just seeing it is enough for those intrusive sexual thoughts to enter your headspace and corrupt it to cause you to relapse. It honestly feels like the world is working against us guys sometimes. So we have to take the initiative and equip ourselves with the tools that we need to overcome this huge challenge. So I made another video on NoFap a few weeks ago explaining how I got my fapping problem under control. And the reception on that was pretty good. A lot of people said it helped them. I'd probably suggest you go and watch that video and then come back to this one. But I remember getting a comment on that video which was essentially asking me how I would manage those unwanted impulses. So here I am making this video today because I've come into some new knowledge on the topic that I'd like to share, and it is going to help with this exact problem. And I will mention that a lot of the information I used came from a YouTuber called Man Talks, and I'm going to link him in the description. So it's going to be a slightly different approach to the one I took in the last video, but I think it's important to acknowledge one of the hardest parts of NoFap or no porn is getting those urges under control. You know, it's something that a lot of guys struggle with, and I don't blame them. And it got me thinking, what if alongside learning how to properly deal with those urges, there was a way that we could prevent them from happening at all? That's what I'm going to be explaining today. I'm going to teach you how to desexualize your brain. So I'll start by saying that most people are aware of the negatives of porn. Erectile dysfunction, problems with relationships, and just poor mental health. All of these negative effects are well documented. A lot of people know about them, but it still doesn't stop us from consuming so much porn. And we can make all these plans to stop. We can install porn blockers. We can find our accountability partner on the NoFap subreddit. We can turn on airplane mode and do a dopamine detox. But we always end up coming back to it. It's just like they say, old habits die hard. And I think one of the main reasons it is so difficult is the length of time over which we've conditioned ourselves into this behavior. Studies have shown that the people most likely to get addicted to porn were the ones who were first exposed to it at a young age. And for me, that checks out. I probably started watching porn about 13 or 14. And nowadays people are watching it even younger. Clearly we're at the start of some kind of intergenerational problem, and that's touched on quite an important mission for me. Honestly, I think it's up to our generation of young men to get this problem under control and find the best ways to deal with it. So then we can pass down that wisdom to the future generations and stop them from making the same stupid mistakes. But getting back to the main topic of the video, when we've learned to rely on that sexual content for so many years as this emotional coping mechanism, you'll find your brain naturally going back to that place anytime you become stressed. So what I'm proposing is to desexualize your brain, which essentially means to rebalance all of your sexual thoughts and behaviors. Instead of letting them dominate your mental space and leading you to make impulsive decisions, it's reducing and redirecting those thoughts in a more healthy, intentional way. Rather than being overwhelmed with desire every time you're exposed to sexual content and feeling the need to relieve yourself with things like porn, it's having the conscious ability to choose not to engage with that material and to conserve your sexual energy for when it really matters. Put simply, it's having total mastery mastery over all of your sexual thoughts and behaviors. So naturally, the first step of desexualizing your brain is to figure out the root causes as to why we're relying on that content. And for this, you're gonna have to ask yourself this question. The last time I fapped, what was I feeling before that? Was it boredom? Was it loneliness? Was it anxiety? What emotional state preceded my urge to fap? And the reason I ask this is because we tend to use porn as a relief for our troubles, to escape reality for a few moments so we can feel alright. And for a lot of us, that's become our brain's default way of coping with any kind of negative emotion. And what I've observed in myself was that I always consumed way more porn when I was at a low point in my life. Whenever I'd have this massive university assignment that I'd left until the last minute and I'd be feeling super overwhelmed, I'd think to myself, I've got to get rid of this stress in the only way I know how. Or it could be the complete opposite of that. I could be lying in bed on a Sunday morning, knowing I should probably get up, but I don't really have anything to do today. And then it would be, I wonder what's new on the hub today. So whatever the circumstances are, just understand that you're probably using porn to escape from a certain feeling. And if you look for the root cause of that, it's usually that there's an aspect of life you're not feeling so happy or fulfilled in. And listen to me when I tell you that life is full of ups and downs. No one is ever going to be 100% satisfied with all areas of their life. You know, we all go through the stresses and monotonies of our lives, and that's fine. But for strong young men like you and me, I don't think we should settle for poor mental health. Sure, other people might bury their problems, they might pretend there's nothing wrong, but not us. Even when it involves change, even when it's uncomfortable, we face our challenges and we do the best we can. So as was the case in the two examples I gave, I think we use fapping as a coping mechanism, either for when there's something we have to do that we'd rather not do, something which is probably going to cause you a lot of stress, or for when we don't actually have a lot going on in life, or when we're feeling bored or lonely. So for whatever your root cause is, and there's a good chance you probably know what that is already, identifying it and addressing it, making a plan for however you're going to handle that stressful task, taking on some new responsibilities so that your life doesn't feel so boring anymore, that should reduce the amount of time your brain is going to that place of relief, that porn, that sexual content. And as a result, that should stop you from having so many sexual desires because you've eliminated the need for that coping mechanism. So on to the next part of the video. I believe that having taken those actions should remove a whole lot of your sexual urges. But what about in the short term? For those times when we're ambushed by some sexual content, when we get exposed to something that literally forces those intrusive thoughts into our mind, how do we build the self-discipline and restraint not to act on those impulses? I believe that the solution lies in getting out of your thoughts and back into the present moment, otherwise known as mindfulness. So mindfulness is the skill of being fully aware and present of where we are and what we're doing. And honestly, it is such a valuable thing to possess in this modern era, because most people spend their entire day stuck inside their own head, thinking themselves into a state of stress and anxiety, worrying about things that have already happened or things that may or may not happen in the future, instead of focusing on the most important time, which is right now. It doesn't matter how much thinking you do, you can't alter the past or the future. Where you're at your most effective is right now, taking action towards your goals. But it's these intrusive thoughts that keep pulling us out of the present moment. Think about how powerful you'd be if anytime one of these thoughts came over you, if instead of letting it work you into an emotional state or causing you to react impulsively, you were able to catch yourself mid-thought and say, I have a choice on whether to let this affect me, and I'm not going to let this thought have power over me. And then you just discard the thought and get back to work. You would be an insanely productive individual next to everyone else who is perpetually distracted and controlled by their thoughts. And it's the same thing with sexual desire. What's sexual desire? It's just a feeling that many people end up acting on and watching porn and regretting it. But that feeling doesn't have to mean anything. You can catch yourself and say, this is my animal brain trying to get me to act on my primal desires. And that's a perfectly normal thing, but I'm not going to act on it. I'm going to go and do something else. Mindfulness can be a very powerful tool. Now, there are many ways that we can build up our mindfulness, but the one I always recommend is meditation or any form of breath work. And I'm going to explain the reason for that shortly. But obviously, meditation involves using your breath as an anchor to bring yourself back into the present moment. moment. And anytime you catch yourself lost in thought, you bring your focus back to the breath, and that also has the effect of calming down your nervous system. And what I'm going to do is link a good meditation routine in a description that you can follow along with and hopefully start building up this skill for yourself. Now, a question you might well have that is perfectly understandable is, how do I know it's working? I've meditated 10 times and I don't feel any different. And I totally understand, because things like meditation that don't have any kind of visual indicator for progress can be quite hard to measure. It's not like when you're working out, when you can see those changes to your physique in response to those increases in strength and size. And there is a particular reason I made that comparison, and that's because I believe we should treat our mind like a muscle. When you start out with meditation or breath work, the chances are that your ability to focus only on the breath is going to be absolutely trashed. And you can thank social media for that with our reduced attention span. You probably won't be able to last 30 seconds before your mind drifts off into some random thought. But just like with working out, if you stay consistent with it, if you keep coming back time after time, if you gradually increase the length of your sessions minute by minute, you'll find yourself being able to focus on the breath for longer periods of time without having your mind wander off into those intrusive thoughts. The best way to get better at any skill is to just be consistent with it, and the same applies to meditation. Now, I just wanted to address some advice I'd heard from other YouTubers who might tell you to exercise or do 10 push-ups whenever you feel those sexual urges coming on. And whilst that could work in theory, I'd always recommend meditation over anything else when it comes to controlling sexual desire. And that's because us humans are naturally lazy. We always find ourselves taking the path of least resistance. So if you start feeling horny and let's say you're in a public place, not many people out there are going to drop down and do 10 push-ups in the middle of a town square. It's just not very likely. But when it comes to breathing, at any time, at any place, it's always going to be such low effort that it's hard to justify not doing it. So anytime you feel that desire coming on, just do a mini meditation session. Observe that feeling, hold on to it for a few minutes, and then let it go. So just to close out this video, another part of mindfulness I wanted to mention, which is very important, is being mindful of your daily routines and the places you spend time in. Because you see, a lot of people have rituals surrounding how they watch porn. They'll do it at certain times of day, in certain places, before or after certain activities. For instance, if you find that after scrolling on Instagram for a little while, you always find yourself having the urge to fap, or let's say after school you come home and lie down on your bed and that's when you feel the urge. It is up to you to be mindful of that cycle and break it. It's on you to change up your routine to avoid falling into those same patterns. And to become clear of that, what I think is a good idea is to write down your porn rituals, so you know exactly what those specific triggers for you are and which behavioural patterns to avoid. So anyways, that is all. I hope this video has been of some use to you, and I wish you the best of luck on your no fap or no porn journey. Stay sharp, stay ahead. I'm out.